Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Zach with Cruise Control, and today we're going to talk about what the future of cruising is going to look like. Now, with all the stipulations the CDC has in place for cruises to resume, as well as the Healthy Sail Panel's recommendations, there's no doubt cruising is going to look completely different when it does eventually resume. Everything from masks to shore excursion restrictions to the buffets, nothing's going to look or feel the way you may remember it. But the good news is, most of it's still going to be there, if not all of it. Now, the first thing we need to address right away is masks. And I have to admit, earlier during this whole global pandemic, I was one of those who said I would not cruise if masks were required. That stemmed from a little bit of arrogance on my part, but also because I couldn't comprehend the thought of taking a vacation and still having to wear a mask. After all, we all take vacations to get away from the trouble, stress, and responsibilities of our everyday lives. But admittedly, when I went to Universal back in August, they had mask mandates in place. And while it was a pain to have to constantly remember my mask, even when in the hotel, it was not as big a deal as I would have thought. Not only that, but there were instances where it was not required to have a mask on, such as sitting and eating, or designated mask-free areas, where you were able to remove your mask and remain socially distant from other guests. Now, considering cruises will allow you to be mask-free in many situations where it's just not feasible to wear a mask, such as when poolside, I feel the whole mask thing just won't be as big a deal as many people are making it out to be. After all, if I can sit outside by the pool or an outside bar area, have a drink in my hand, and not have to worry about wearing a mask, that's good enough for me. The next thing we need to talk about is the fact that we're hearing rumors of RFID bracelets or some sort of wearable technology being used for onboard contact tracing. Again, I just don't see this as a big deal. As it is, you're almost constantly on camera when in public areas on a cruise ship, and if they really wanted to, they could simply follow you via the cameras, just like most stores do on land. The RFID simply makes it easier and faster for them to get the data they need to properly contact trace guests, as well as know who's been within a certain distance of whom and for how long. That information allows them to go to any guest that may have come in contact with someone on board who may have tested positive and quickly isolate them and get them tested as well. These RFID wearables may also be used to pay for things on board in a manner similar to Android or Apple Pay. This minimizes person to person contact and the back and forth handling of keycards. And if the Ocean Medallion from Princess is anything to go off of, it will also allow servers to bring drinks right to you in a venue, such as the theater or other show venues. So no more having to flag down a server and failing to get their attention for what feels like forever when all you want to do is order a drink. And then, of course, we have to talk about the aspect of remaining socially distant. This is where I feel we as cruisers may really feel the sting of restrictions. From mixing and mingling at dinner to just meeting new people and partying at deck parties and activities. Areas such as the Bliss Lounge on Norwegian Cruise Line ships will become ghost towns if they expect social distance to be in place at all times. This to me seems to be one of the biggest hurdles for cruisers, as many people do solo cruises and solo cabins with the intention of meeting up with other solo cruisers and making a new social circle to mingle with on board. If strict social distancing measures are in place, that will be completely ruled out. Last but not least, let's talk shore excursions and port activities, or lack thereof. Cruisers will not be allowed to freely explore ports of call and will be allowed off the ship only if attending a cruise line excursion. That means no getting off the ship and exploring the shops or stalls, no booking excursions with third party vendors for better prices, and limited activities to do portside. And this is all assuming we even have ports to get off at once we start cruising again. This will make picking a cruise for a specific port almost a moot point. The primary draw will absolutely have to be the ship. Now, we here at Cruise Control have a cruise book for January, and it's almost a safe bet to say it'll be canceled at this rate. And as soon as we were discussing this point, the first thing said was, so all that time picking out ports was pointless then. And I really can't argue that. Now, I for one would much rather pick a cruise for a ship over a location, but I'm perfectly aware that not everyone feels the same way. And this, in and of its own, may be the biggest turnoff for most people. Now, while cruising may not look or feel the way you remember it, the important thing is to remember it's still the same cruise, put on by the same cruise line, with the same crew, which means they still have your vacation in mind at all times, and will do what they can to make sure you have the vacation of your dreams. And by all means, if any of this is a deal breaker for you, just wait. No one is saying you have to cruise as soon as it returns. I know I will be, but that's just me. Speaking of which, if any cruise lines are looking for volunteers for their test sailings, I'd like to volunteer. For scientific reasons, of course. Well, guys, I'm going to leave that there. Hopefully, passenger cruising resumes here in America soon, because as soon as it does, I have a cruise to book. Anyway, guys, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys on board. Later.